Thank you very much for attending our meeting tonight, the Moderators Meeting. Seated at the table tonight, we have David Ramsey, the Town Administrator, Bill Leahy, Town Council, and Felicia Hoffman, the Town Clerk. The purpose of this meeting is to discuss the various items that will be presented at Town Meeting, to discuss the order of presentation, and also to determine who will be speaking. Before we start to proceed through the articles, I would like to thank the Board of Selectmen and the Warrant Committee. It's been a very busy year, and this will be our second town meeting for this fiscal year. As you know, it's been a lot of work, and the town really appreciates all the work that you've done. Also would like to thank all of the town employees, Dave Ramsey and Greer Pugash and Felicia Hoffman have done a lot of work along with the other town employees that have helped us through a very busy year. And I should also mention Kathy Weld for putting together the town report. Thank you very much, Kathy. Excellent job. For those of you who are making presentations where you will be using PowerPoints, please email them to Bill Clark. Bill's email address is webmaster, all one word, at dovermass.org. And let me welcome our assistant town moderator, David Haviland. Thank you, David.
Yeah, sorry about that. Straight from Otisville, Connecticut.
Yeah, that's what I figured. I'm glad you're not still circling somewhere.
Exactly.
So, welcome. And on my right is David Haviland, assistant town moderator. So if you are going to be making presentations, if you could email them to webmaster@dovermass.org, preferably by close of business tomorrow, so that Bill will have enough time over the weekend to make sure that the PowerPoints are ready. Yes, Greer.
If I may,
Sure.
it's doverma.org.
Oh, thank you, doverma.org, thank you.
Yeah.
Webmaster@doverma, doverma is all one word, .org. Okay, great, thank you. Okay, let's now proceed to the articles. And the first article is our routine article to be read before Article 1 that requires that if somebody is going to increase an appropriation, they are going to have to identify the source of funds that would provide the funding for that additional appropriation. And Mr. Stewart will make the motion and Mr. Lawrence will second. Any additional comments on that, gentlemen, before we? No. Okay. Okay, we'll then proceed to the meeting itself, Article 1. We'll ask for acceptance of the various town committee reports. Mr. Stewart will make the motion again, Mr. Lawrence will second.
Yes.
Any additional comments? Okay. Article 2, to see whether we'll accept the provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 59, relating to tax exemptions for real property, particularly for blind individuals, veterans, surviving spouses, and seniors. Mr. Stewart, again, will make the main motion, and Mr. Lawrence will second. Any additional questions or comments on Article 2? Okay. Article 3, now we'll start to get more into the meat of the meeting. Salaries for elected officials. Mr. Stewart will make the motion, Mr. Lawrence will second. I will call through the various salaries, and if somebody objects to that salary, we'll come back to that objection and will require, as you know, a second motion to be made for the items that are objected to. We'll have a discussion with respect to those items, and then we'll have an additional vote. If there is no objection after I've read through the salaries, then the salaries will be deemed to have been approved by the town meeting. And we'll be discussing that at town meeting as well. It's the same routine we followed in the past. Okay, any comments or questions on Article 3? Okay, Article 4, town budget. It's going to be the same drill as prior years. We'll call through the various items. If somebody has a question or raises an objection, that item will require an additional motion and a second in discussion and a separate vote. I should ask at this point, at the beginning of the meeting, we'll have the customary remarks by Jim Dowley, where Carol will be making the customary remarks, And then also we'll have the customary remarks by the chair of the warrant committee, James. And James, will there be any additional presentations that you want to make for Article 4 that you wouldn't have covered in your introductory remarks, or?
Well, what we're going to do is we're going to have our budget overview,
Right.
which will be given by Douglas.
Okay, so Doug will be giving the budget overview at Article 4, at the time of Article 4, okay. Okay. Just a reminder, if at all possible, if we could keep all presentations under 10 minutes, that would be really great. The citizens would greatly appreciate it. Okay. Article 5, capital budget. And there are a number of items for capital budget. Again, I will call through each of the individual items. If no one has a question or objects, they'll be deemed to have been approved by the town meeting. If somebody does have a question or object, we'll require an additional motion for the items that questions were raised to and have a separate vote after discussion. Okay, any questions or comments on Article 5? Okay. Article 6, this article we're going to dismiss. It deals with funding for unemployment compensation, and Mr. Forte will make the motion, and Mr. Cohen will second. Any further thoughts on that? Okay. Article 7, for sick leave, and the proposal, which Mr. Pearson will make the motion, is to appropriate $10,000 for sick leave. Mr. Merrill will second. Any further thoughts or questions on that? Article 8, for highway construction and maintenance, Mr. Merrill will make the motion and Mr. Stewart will second. Any questions or thoughts? Okay. Revolving fund, Article 9. There are a number of items that are relate to the revolving fund. Mrs. Canny will make the main motion, and Mrs. Gilbody will second. One thing that I think might come up with respect to Article 9 is that there's always a question about Parks and Recreation's revolving committee, and somebody may ask why this hasn't been included in Article 9. And if that question did arise, should I direct that to you, Kate, or who would you like me to direct that question to, James?
Perhaps our council. As it relates to a different, it's a different law.
Right.
If you think somebody from the warrant committee should handle it, then I'd be happy to do it.
Okay. I can anticipate that we may have a question. It has come up the last 3 town meetings, so I think that it's like, it'll either come up here or with Article 4. And so, James, that would be great if okay, that would be great, thank you. Article 10 will be the Council on Aging bylaw amendment. And Mr. Cohen will make the main motion, Mr. Forte will second it. And can we expect a lot of discussion about this, do you think? Probably not, okay. 7:30. Very good, yeah. Yeah, 7:30.
I don't anticipate any discussion.
Okay. Okay, very good. Article 11. This is a request to appropriate funds for a renovation of the Carroll Community Center. And Mr. Cohn will make the main motion and Mr. Lawrence will second. And who from the Board of Selectmen should I look to for this? Jim?
I will be presenting along with Kathy Wells.
Okay.
And in our scripts this evening, there's an amount of $550,000 in there. That will be changed to $650,000.
Okay. And Jim, would you like to comment on the reason for that now? Because I think we have a lot of people here involved in town. It might be helpful to start the education process, the discussion.
Yes, quickly, then I'll turn it over to John Mills. When it went out for bid a month ago, 5 weeks ago, whatever the case may be, bids were opened April 17th.
On the police dispatch.
Please, thank you. I'm jumping ahead. But as part of that, the bids were open for the police dispatch on April 17th, and it was found that the amount appropriated for construction costs was about $61,000 below the appropriate amount. The lowest bid was higher by $61,000 over the appropriated construction cost. That led to discussion, and ultimately the Board of Selectmen decided to get a professional cost estimator in and ask Mr. Mills to reconcile the difference of why the proposed numbers were X and they came in at Y. And at the same time, because we had some time before town meeting, we asked the professional estimator to look at the Carroll Community bathrooms. And lo and behold, last night they came back and they said it was $100,000 more than the $550 that we're requesting. Again, John Mills will speak about that in detail once I'm done. After a great discussion over the last 24 hours, it was determined we'd go forward with and ask for the $650 and let the town decide. At that point, let me get out of the way and ask Mr. Mills if that's okay, Mr. Moderator,
Sure.
to explain.
And Mr. Mills, you're the town architect?
I've been called that, yes.
Okay.
I've been working with the town since '98,
Mhm.
I believe,
Very good.
and doing various projects. Yeah, so we're kind of having backwards here in that
Sorry to
Yes.
interrupt.
Yeah, James?
This is going to be, I think, a somewhat detailed discussion. How much time, are we planning to sort of focus on this and ask questions, or are we gonna do that later? Or sort of stop the whole process towards figuring out?
I was hoping that we could do this in 5 or 10 minutes and then proceed. It will only take another 10 minutes to get, or 15 minutes to get through the rest of the items.
Okay, okay, that's fine. I had a question though again as to whether, because I think we had a discussion at the Board of Selectmen's meeting, and I think we probably will take some time
Okay.
to ask those questions, so I don't know how you want to handle it.
Okay, well, you raise a good point, James. Do you think that this would be the appropriate forum to have a detailed discussion, or should we wait for the selectmen's meeting, Jim?
Well, number one, Mr. Mills is probably this mathematical conversation, so that should go relatively quickly. And that's up to you, Mr. Moderator, whether you want to entertain questions and answers.
Okay. Will you be having a meeting after this? Will the
I
selectmen?
intend to go into another meeting downstairs, Springdale, a study meeting.
Okay,
That was my intent.
okay,
We don't have a meeting scheduled, that's for sure.
okay.
We do actually,
Warrant committee, yes.
Warrant committee has a meeting.
We have one also,
Oh, because of this meeting continues? Okay, thank you.
so we certainly can, if time allows, after the moderators meeting, we can all get together and discuss in
Right.
whatever detail, because we prepare some nice numbers.
That's what I was hoping.
Yeah, source of funds. So we can do that.
Now, James and Dave, let me ask you this. Would this be something that we would want, is it exploratory, or is it something that townspeople would find interesting in preparation for town meeting? If it's exploratory, I think it's better that you do it at the warrant committee. If instead it's more of a factual summation, it might be helpful to start to educate the town now about what the issues are, so.
Mr. Moderator, last year, we spent a lot of time looking into and understanding the protected agencies building renovation, and we spent a tremendous amount of time actually trying to understand it and asking questions so that we could all be fully informed. And then this year, we also spent a fair amount of time throughout the entire process on the Carroll School Community Center bathroom upgrades. And so it sort of would be congruent to spend, now that there's this relatively large change, to really understand and tie things together. So in terms of whether this is exploratory or expository, Yeah, I don't think we know yet. I think
Right.
we have a lot of basic questions, and I think that it's really just some of the groundwork that was tying that together
Right.
with what we've done before. So I think we just don't know.
Okay. Well, I think that's very helpful, James, thank you. I think the fact that you're not sure suggests that it is exploratory, and I think that it would probably be better for the town to allow you to work through your normal process of ascertaining the facts, identifying the issues, and then presenting to the town meeting on Monday a summation of what the issues are and what your findings of fact are with respect to those issues. I think if we tried to do that here, it would actually be confusing, because it would still be a process of trying to actually determine what in fact is happening. But the important thing, I think, to recognize now is that because of rising construction costs, the estimates that have been made are in fact below what the actual cost would be today. And I think that's something that we should make sure that the citizens of the town realize, so that when they come to town meeting Monday, they can be prepared for a discussion about whether they're willing to devote the additional resources. As an aside, I was talking to a contractor myself today about roof repairs, and the estimates are going up as well because of the demand. So, Mr. Mills, if you would just briefly summarize the increase in the cost estimates so that we can present that to the people here, and then we'll have a much more detailed discussion with the warrant committee after this meeting.
Okay, you want me to limit my comments initially to the Carroll Community Center?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
The dispatch later. The Carroll Community Center review was predicated on the fact that bids had come in higher on the dispatch center. Once we understood the nature of those, we decided to do another look at the dispatch numbers, which were done preliminarily back in January of last year. The industry has heated up. There's been a lot of escalation recently. We were concerned about not having enough resources assigned to the dispatch area, so we thought, before this comes to town meeting, we'll take a look at this. And across the board, numbers have gone up in all trades, some more than others. But estimating is also not precise science, because the estimator is not the contractor. They always try to develop a value and not predict the lowest bid. Generally, it's been my experience that the value that's been determined by an estimator winds up being the middle of the pack. Rarely is it low or near the low. So what happened on dispatch was unusual. So we're trying to be preemptive on the renovation of the toilet rooms, even though it's not quite ready for bid, won't be till this time next year.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Mills. Are there any questions at this point? Okay, so just to reiterate, the request for Article 11 is going to be increased from the initial estimate of $550,000. It will be increased to $650,000 at town meeting. And we can expect that there will be a detailed analysis by the warrant committee, and also Mr. Mill, who will be available at town meeting. Mr. Mill, if we have any questions, great. Thank you very much. Jim, do you have anything that you would like to add? Or?
I'm just a little bit confused. Should we ask questions now or not?
If you want to ask questions relating to what he commented on, that would certainly, Robin.
Right, so it looks like there's approximately a 15% increase over the cost. So is that akin to an industry standard right now? Is that what you're seeing across the board?
Well, it varies by trade. We had about a 23% increase in the dispatch area.
Okay, I was looking at this one.
Yeah, that's right. So it's not, it depends on the trades.
Okay.
The part of the issue is that things were really flat for a very long time
Right.
because of the recession. And now things have heated up. One general comment that I've heard from multiple sources, not related to this project, is in the subcontractors' trades. Many subcontractors laid off people, sold trucks, sold tools in 2009, and they haven't increased their workforce, but they have more work now than they had in 2008. And so their margins are going up, the profit margins are going up. Things are still competitive in the general construction. And the general contractors are not able to do the same thing as the subs have done, because things are still quite competitive. But subcontractors are experiencing a boom advantage of it in terms of putting their people to work fully and being able to charge higher margins, profit margins.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Source of funds would come from free cash?
No.
It's a general appropriation in the whole town meeting, so I wouldn't sort of dictate that and say it's free cash. It would be the townwide appropriation.
It's raised and appropriate.
Okay.
Article 11 says appropriation. Okay, any further questions or comments? Okay, Article 12 is Conservation Commission, requesting appropriation of $25,000 for the Conservation Fund. Mr. Peterson will make the main motion and Mrs. Gernard will second. Any questions or comments on Concom? Okay. Article 13, to see if the town will vote to approve borrowing authorized by Dover-Sherburne Regional School District. This motion, warrant committee has recommended that it be dismissed. Mrs. Gilbody will make the main motion, Mrs. Gernard will second. Any questions or discussion with respect to this article? Okay, Article 14 relates to capital equipment and improvements by the Dover-Sherburne Regional School. Mrs. Gernard will make the main motion, and Mrs. Gilbody will second. The amounts that are being requested for these capital equipment and improvements total $358,000. Any questions or comments? Okay, thank you. Article 15, Minuteman District School Committee, with relate to an existing agreement that we have with the Minuteman School Committee. The warrant committee is recommending that this article be dismissed at this time because there's still ongoing discussion and exploration of the town's alternatives with respect to Minuteman. Again, Mrs. Canning will make the main motion, Mr. Lawrence will second. Any questions or discussion? Robin, do you have anything?
No, no.
Okay. Article 16 was a request that we withdraw from the Minuteman Regional Vocational School District. Again, because this is still under discussion and study, the warrant committee recommends that this be dismissed. Mrs. Canning will make the main motion and Mr. Lawrence will second.
Actually, the way these articles were drafted is if 15 doesn't pass, it makes 16 and 17
Okay.
non-employed.
Okay, so they're all kind of in parcel together. Okay, very good. Thank you. In Article 17, it is related, as Robin points out, it pertains to study of alternative technical school education for our students. And again, because this is all under study and exploration, the warrant committee has recommended that this be dismissed as well. Mrs. Canning will make the main motion and Mr. Lawrence will second. Any questions or comments? Okay. Article 18 relates to providing continued benefits for the surviving spouse of a member of the fire department who might be killed in the performance of duties. The warrant committee recommends that we adopt this proposal. Mr. Merrill will make the main motion, and Mr. Peterson will second. Any questions or comments on this motion? Okay, Article 19 relates to an appropriation of $250,000 to the reserve fund. Mr. Stewart will make the main motion and Mr. Forte will second. Any questions or comments, gentlemen? Okay, thank you. Article 20 is a motion to move $1,528 from free cash for paying some bills that, Dave, this pertains to the prior fiscal year? Is that right?
Prior fiscal years.
So this pertains to payment of bills for prior fiscal year, and because of that, we have a supermajority vote requirement. So this will require a 4/5 vote at town meeting. And we'll start with a voice vote, and hopefully there won't be any nays, so I won't have to ask for a standing vote, so that I can declare that it's unanimous. Okay, Mr. Forte will make the main motion, and Mr. Stewart will second. Any questions or comments on this? Okay. Article 21. This is a supplemental appropriation request. We include this every year. This year, there will be a request for a supplemental appropriation, and if I could look to Jim and Robin.
Robin's gonna handle this.
Okay, Robin, maybe you could educate us a little bit more about what's going on here.
So again, a couple of weeks ago, we opened bids for the protective agency building. And the lowest bid was approximately $61,000 higher than what we had appropriated for.
Okay.
And so I plan to give a very brief presentation. I'm going to prepare a gap analysis based upon what Mr. Mills has given us, just to illustrate to the town what made up the difference. But again, it's really based upon the economy, and keeping in mind that the estimating was done for the protective agency building 18 months ago. And we've seen this trend of price increases
Right.
creep up over the time. So,
Okay.
but, we will prepare a gap analysis and ask the citizens to appropriate the additional $61,000.
Okay.
Now, the gap analysis, or the $61,000, does not include contingencies that we may need. And if we were to need contingencies during the fiscal year for items that we have, that we are unable to know right now may come up, we will be looking to use free cash for those.
And Robin, when did these estimates come in?
2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago.
No, this week.
This week. Okay. I just want to comment that the selectmen should be commended for reacting so quickly to the fact that these estimates came in higher because of rising construction costs, and then immediately realized that this could also affect the appropriation that was made last year for the Carroll School. So I really appreciate the fact that you were so alert to the potential problems so that we weren't blindsided by this. So thank you very much for your diligence.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. May I make one comment?
Sure.
As we read the motion in Article 21, perhaps we can change the language in the votes so we don't dismiss it at town meeting.
Mr. Dolly, I have the revision.
Thank you.
I'm glad you said that, Jim. I think I would have just read it blindly. Right. Right. Okay, so, and again, we can expect that there'll be a presentation, Robin, that you'll be making with PowerPoints.
Right, maybe 3 slides.
Okay, fine, and that will show the variances from the estimate to, okay. Because I think that would be very helpful for the citizens at town meeting. Thank you.
Because it is a confusing issue when you see the bids, they come in for less than the total budget. You need to understand that the total budget wasn't just the construction.
Right. Right. Well, that would be helpful to have the PowerPoints, thank you. Okay, are there any other questions or comments? Kathy?
I just wanted to ask a question. Is the $61,000 totally related to changes in estimates, or is there any change in the plan?
It's both, and that will be addressed.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I think it's a combination, and that will be addressed in the analysis that will be put together.
Okay.
I haven't seen,
Yeah, we just got the
We just got
analysis
the
literally
stuff.
5 minutes ago, so I can show that.
And we'll be sharing it with you after the moderators meeting.
Okay.
Right. Okay, so question was asked if there was any change in also items that the expenditures would relate to, and the answer is that there have been some modifications that they just received, the selectmen just received, so those will be discussed in the exploratory meeting in the fact-finding session that the warrant committee is going to be engaged in. Okay, so this is very much a moving target, and again, I appreciate everybody's attention to this. I know it's difficult at the last minute But it's really very helpful to the citizens of town that we have avoided being blindsided by this. So thank you very much again, and thank you for all of your work on this matter. Article 22 is a request to transfer from free cash in amount that has not been designated yet. Mr. Forte will make the main motion, and Mr. Merrill will make the second. James, is there any feeling like you're zoning in, moving in on the targeting this
We
amount?
have a number, there's a number in the Blue Book, which is based on the Blue Book estimates. Clearly, we might have some changes at town meeting that
Right.
might change things. Supplemental appropriations might change things. So we calculate that real time as the meeting goes on and have a number ready to put in. when it's
Okay.
done.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Any questions or comments on free cash? Okay, Article 23. This is appropriation for Dover Stabilization Fund. Warrant Committee has recommended that this be dismissed. Mr. Lawrence will make the main motion, and Mr. Stewart will second. Any questions or discussion on Article 23? Okay, we will then move to a motion that the meeting be dissolved, and,
You have music at the town meeting?
well, I was glad that it
I'm
wasn't,
just happy with overall.
I'm glad I caught it quickly.
I was glad that it wasn't organ funeral music. Okay, any questions or comments before we terminate this moderators meeting? Can I ask town council, Bill, do you have any thoughts of, or comments about what we discussed? Okay,
No, seems good.
very good. David, are you all?
I'm set, thank you.
Okay, and Dave, you're all set?
I am.
Okay, well, thank you for attending the meeting. Again, I know you have a lot of work that lies ahead, and we really do appreciate your work and diligence paying attention to this matter. It's your efforts that make Dover a wonderful place to live in and a great community, so thank you very much. Meeting's adjourned.
Thank you, sir.